Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special Inside the Birds TV edition. It is our day 3 recap of the Eagles draft. Adam, it's a lot of picks finally over. One prediction we made correctly was that the Eagles would not make 11 picks. I believe in total they made 9.
What was the number I came up with? Do you remember?
I don't. I think we just said there's no way they're going to make 11
I said
picks.
9.
Oh, did
Someone
you?
reminded me. I did say 9. It was a guess. I didn't know.
Oh, there.
But no, what I said was, what you and I said was, they're not going to have 11. It's not going to happen because you had made such a great point, which a couple teams made to me after you'd said it. I was just exchanging information as you lead up, just about what the draft looks like in next year. You had said like a week ago that you're hearing that a lot of teams are trying to get picks for next year. Now, I can't remember the exact reason. The reason I got from teams was that they see the COVID issue, of course, barring anything unforeseen, being much less of a factor next year. So it can get back to some kind of normalcy. Well, as you said earlier this week, and we heard from Jerry Jones say it, and Howie Roseman said it within the last 24 hours, one of the interviews, it was really hard to get medical information.
Right.
Everything should be so much better next year, knock on wood, in 22.
Yep.
And if that happens, you're want to have more picks because you'll make better decisions.
Right.
I think that's part of the whole thing. I think whoever you spoke with, I think they nailed it because I heard similar, just a little bit of a different way.
Yeah, I think that's the case for about 75%. The other 25% of the reason is, if you draft 11 guys, it's great to have a lot of picks, but once you get to that many picks, the percentages of those guys being able to make your team, it's you don't want a wasted pick. You'd rather have a higher pick in another year than a bunch of 6 and 7 rounders of a very small chance of making your team. You're not going to turn 11 picks. What is the roster? It's 53-man roster, right? So I mean, that's like a fifth of your roster. That's not going to happen from one draft. So.
Right, exactly. It's funny because that was sort of my reasoning. Just what you said, I was like, okay, I know that this is a team that's in transition. It's a bottom 10 team, sure. But what you can do is shrink that number because the other than Jalen Mills, I have to go through in my head the last 15 years of the 7th rounders that made the Eagles roster. Not many. It happens, but it's rare. And then not only to make it, but to contribute like Jalen Mills does, that just doesn't happen. The guy starts the Super Bowl. I mean, come on, that doesn't happen.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, why not flip them? And they did. They flipped. They got a 5th for next year by flipping 2 late rounders.
Absolutely. I think it was smart. And next year, we're going to be talking about the bounty. Well, unless they use a lot of those picks to trade for a quarterback or somebody else.
Yeah.
They're going to have a pretty good amount of a haul there, too. And we'll see what happens. So give me before we get into the prospects.
Sure.
Oh, excuse me. Give me your overall viewpoint on the 3rd day of the draft.
The 3rd day, I would say, look, the McPherson kid's a really interesting player, corner from Texas Tech. I am still surprised. I'll admit, I thought for sure they would draft an outside corner in the first 3 rounds. They didn't. They drafted one in the 4th round. Okay, he's a good football player. We'll get into him, what we know about him. The Gainwell pick, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. We'll talk about him. We'll break him down. We'll discuss why I thought this guy would be a great fit. I mean, it's one of the rare college players I've seen more than any. It's just really rare. I'll tell you why. Get this out of the way. Mm-hmm. For some reason, and I think it's because Temple is in this market, in the Philadelphia market, and it seemed like it was either Temple, Memphis, or Cincinnati on television every weekend for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, like on a Thursday night where everybody
Thursday Night Football, Saturday on CBS Sports Network. So it's like, what am I going to do? Like if I'm home on a Saturday, I'm not a big college football guy. I'll watch. Mm-hmm. It just so happened in 2019, I watched every game of Memphis. I'm not kidding. Every game. I'm like, who's this Kenny Gainwell guy? This guy's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Who knew he would opt out? That was a mistake. Well, not a mistake. It's his personal preference, but
sure.
It absolutely, Memphis football source told me that absolutely crushed his value. That's why he dropped. That's just one person's valuation, but we'll get to him. And the Stevens kid, that I like that pick. He's going to be a hybrid player. A Malcolm Jenkins type, but obviously Malcolm is a great football player.
Right.
Look, it's typical on the last day. You're going to be mostly nonplussed. What that means is not super enthused, other than Gainwell, Stevens pick. I know a little bit about Teron Jackson, a little bit about Patrick Johnson. McPherson, I know a decent amount. I think it's your typical last day. Roseman should. Most GMs will rely more on their scouting staff on the last day. I know Bill Polian told me that, and I know Roseman said that actually last year. He said that this one's for the scouts, and that's typically what GMs say. And we'll see how they work out. Again, we need to wait 3 years for some we don't, as we've seen in recent drafts. It's not the nicest thing to say, but it is true.
Sure.
And look, that was kind of my thinking. That was kind of my response to your question. We're just going to have to wait and see. I feel pretty good. The thing we promised people, we said after we did our post, Friday night show, we said we're going to have a lot more information on these earlier picks than we do. That's the beauty of doing this. We have a lot more information of not waiting till Monday to just do the post draft show. We're doing it now, and we'll also have one that will drop Monday morning, which will be more about just the Eagles. It's more about the roster construction, what it looks like now that they've had the picks. But this one is just breaking out what we know on these players.
Okay, so my overview, without even talking specifically about a singular prospect, is that this draft felt to me like an Andy Reid era draft, with its focus on the trenches and its focus on a different variety of pass rushers, whether interior, exterior. Some guys have different body builds, and I can't figure out, and we won't know until down the road, whether it's kind of those early Reid banner drafts where you discovered some pretty good talent there in the mid to late rounds, but you also remember the Reid/Heckert drafts at the end there, where you think of guys like a Ricky Sapp or a Brian Thomas from McNeese State.
Ricky Sapp, he quit football.
The whole fastball thing. We're gonna draft guys up front in the 7.
Sounds like Andy. Yeah,
Daniel Teo Nessim, and no, I'm not trying to focus on negative. There were guys that I'm sure that I'm not thinking of that can play as well. Jeff Owens played for a few years. He was okay.
Blew his knee out. Unfortunately, that was out of Georgia, right?
Right. And so it feels like that to me, and we'll see how it works out. But I mean, that it was way more of an emphasis on the lines, and the front 7, the defense front 7, than I anticipated going into the draft, and that's why it feels like an Andy Reid draft. And also, if you look at last year, what a focus on offense, right, between Rager and then Hurts, and then the speed, Watkins and Hightower, and this year it's seemingly a focus on defense. Obviously, with 6 of the 9 players being taken were defensive, or is it 7 of the 9 or 6?
Let's see. Devontae Smith, Kenny Gainwell.
3 players taken on offense, and Dixon
and Landon Dixon. The center. Sure.
Yeah. So it's fairly interesting. So I'm gonna say this again without having really dug in yet, because we're doing this about 20 minutes after the draft ended. Because of certain positions that they went in and really needed, quote unquote, for their team, like outside corner, as you mentioned, developmental quarterback, as we talked about a lot, and then linebacker, right? You look at this and you say, it doesn't appear that they felt like they were going to reach in any round to address those positions.
Correct.
They just went and got players that they must have felt were really good players for what they do, which is a philosophy that I can get behind.
I do. I agree. Now, the Milton Williams kid, I don't know exactly. I mean, I know they picked him in the 3rd round. I don't know if they had a 4th round grade on him or lower. I don't know exactly. I mean, I know it's around where they picked him. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, because he's so explosive. He's sort of a tweener. Tweeners don't always make it. They can in college football, because you could dominate against a lower level, like at Louisiana Tech. You're playing lower level teams, and his tape the past season was unbelievable. But he's got short arms, and that's going to be a problem. More and more I dug in on him in the last 24 hours in terms of the way teams see him and people in scouting. Some people are going to say he could overcome it. Some can't say they question it, and that's fine. That's why the guy's a 3rd round pick. There's always warts when you get to the 3rd round, folks. There's no perfect players. That's not that there ever is, but there are more warts on players. His is shorter arms, guards or tackles, depending where they line him up. Because that's another thing with him, is are they going to tell him to put on weight, because he lost a lot of weight to be able to move around a little bit more, and he was phenomenal.
Right.
So we'll see about him. Overall, look, I would say the past 2 drafts, I felt that they made reaches on a show like you and I are doing here. Whereas I don't feel that way. And again, we don't really know a lot about, other than Gainwell, we don't know a lot about the 6th rounders or the 7th rounders. I know a little bit more than most probably on Stevens because I knew about him before the draft. It's rare
Right.
that I know about any of these guys, but just I talked to someone in scouting who had that area from another team, and he actually mentioned him as a linebacker. And of course, the Eagles moved him to safety, which you loved. But look, we'll see. There are a lot of questions here.
All right. So you mentioned it. We'll go at one. I don't have to retire because I told people if the Eagles actually drafted a safety,
Technically,
in any of the first 3 rounds. No, he ain't playing safety. It doesn't count. And he wasn't the first 3 rounds. So I said I would retire because I knew that they weren't going to do it. And I do wonder at some point, just like with linebacker, I get it that is not your positional value. But when you also not going out and putting a lot of money into it, if you're not going to put first round pick into it and you're not going to put a heavy amount of money in free agency into it, I wonder if you value other positions so much that when you're trying to weigh one prospect versus another, one's a lineman, one's a safety, if you're always just naturally going to gravitate toward the position that you value, and that leads to years and years and years of not addressing a certain position that you really need to address. So everybody gets to hear me scream from the mountaintops for another year that the Eagles just never take safeties, and they actually are important in today's
early, right? Yeah, I mean they haven't done it since what? Nate Allen. It was 2010. That was 11 years ago. And you know what? Had he not torn his patella,
that was 2012, by the way. But yeah,
no, he wasn't drafted in 2012.
I think.
Nate Allen?
Oh well, Jaquan Jarrett was actually the last.
Jarrett was 11. Jarrett was 11. Nate Allen was 10. The reason why I know it was 10 because I wrote about him for Fox
No,
Sports.
you're right about that. I'm just saying the last safety they drafted in the first 2 rounds is Jarrett, not Allen.
11. He was drafted in 11.
Right. Yeah. That's after 2010. So he's the last safety they drafted.
And by the way, they made such a bad mistake. He was a box safety.
Box safety.
Who drafted?
Wasn't even that good of a box safety, to be honest with you.
Well, you know what? Greco so liked him because he was so dominant in the run game.
Okay.
But what I think the Eagles learned is those type of players you draft in the 5th round. The Raiders learned it, and it's ironic that they brought Carl Joseph back. Carl Joseph is a box safety. Mm-hmm. The Browns learned when he had to play as a post safety doesn't work.
Right.
You have to be able to play safety. You can't just be a box safety anymore. Like Landon Collins, there were rumors about him playing linebacker because he doesn't cover very well. He's an impactful player.
Mm-hmm.
And the contract that the Washington did, I mean, I don't blame the agent. The agent did a great job, but he's just not that good of a football player. He's overrated.
Right. I remember
that have versatility.
A Taylor Mays issue a long time ago.
Oh my God. Well, now he had all sorts of stuff going on.
Correct.
Yeah. And the funny thing was it Scott McCloughan, the Washington GM, was it Taylor Mays who he loved? I can't remember.
I think
some hybrid safety. I don't remember.
All right. The other area I want to address is obviously Zach Ertz is still a member.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure. Absolutely.
I want to kind of address that before, so we don't forget about it at the end. Before we get these prospect breakdowns.
It's on my list. Yeah.
What do you think happened there?
I was talking to a team that was involved in this situation, and they had no problem giving up what the Eagles wanted, which wasn't a lot. Their issue was how much they would pay Ertz. Look, Zach is making a little bit over $8 million. He deserves it. He's on the final year of his deal. I have no problem with it. Mm-hmm. It's just that you have to have the cap space to do it and be willing to pay him. And it got to the point where, I felt all along it would get done on the last day because that's kind of where he's at in his career. He's not, 25. He's 31. I got it wrong. I'll take the loss. Mm-hmm. He's still on the roster for now.
Right.
But
so that's not guaranteed for the Eagles, right? If they
no. Well, it's. There's no guarantees left in the contract. Like I'm not saying they're going to cut him, but if they wanted to, they just take the dead money on the signing bonus proration.
Right.
Because remember that he had restructures. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of dead money. It's just that they'd save a lot of cash and a lot of cap. Right. And as one of the cap websites pointed out, the Eagles are super tight against the cap. I hadn't looked in weeks to the point where, if I read this correctly, they're barely going to be able to sign their rookies if they can at all with the available cap space. Mm-hmm. So I do really wonder now that it has not been done, what will they do going forward? Look,
good question.
The way that I understand it, this coaching staff is very high on Goddard. I mean, I know it. 2 people told me, so I'm pretty certain that's true. His role is going to increase, even if Ertz for somehow is on the roster in September. I also did say that one way or the other, I didn't think he'd be on the roster in September if it didn't get done in the draft. He could be back, and as someone suggested to me Friday night, from another team, why don't they just keep him, let him get the comp pick? They're not going to be good anyway. Just get the comp pick for the next year. I'm like, okay, and Zach is going to make a lot of money, but Zach's competitive. Dallas Goddard is the future of tight end. This is kind of where the discussion started in the offseason with Zach.
Right.
where mostly reasonable people thought he was absolutely going to be traded.
Mm-hmm.
You never heard anyone refuting anything out there because that was where it was going with it. I'm very interested to hear what the general manager says about this, what the Eagles' view is, publicly at least.
Right.
I know that, I let you know earlier this week that, there was one team, I'm not going to say the team or the conference, I don't want to give it away. They wanted this player, but they said they couldn't make the numbers work because they have not a small cap issue. It's just they could not make the numbers work. They looked into it pretty hard, and they talked to the Eagles, they talked to people, Zach's people, and they just couldn't work it out. So this is where it's at. Notice the Eagles did not draft a tight end, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Where's that blocking tight end? It's going to have to be, for now, it's going to have to be Goddard. We'll see if Richard Rodgers comes back, though.
Well, as we're doing this, they're probably scrambling around trying to sign priority free agents.
Yeah.
Kenny Eboa never got drafted. Maybe I don't know how much.
Who's that?
Well, the Kenny Eboa kid from Temple who went to, where did he wind up at? The school is escaping. Houston?
Kenny Eboa. I'm drawing a blank. Keep going.
It matters none. It's just that he's a tight end prospect that
for sure.
I think can block a little bit. So, we'll see. Once those names come in, we'll probably have that for our podcast. That's going to come out Monday morning. We'll go through a few of the PFA guys that they signed.
Ole Miss for you.
Ole Miss, yes. I don't know.
Great hair, by the way.
Great hair?
Pretty cool. Yeah, he's got a flat top.
I thought you were talking about me.
No, Kenny Eboa, yeah.
All right. Awesome. Let's get into the prospects here on day 3. We'll start off with their 4th round pick. He's the cornerback, Zach McPherson with an EA in there.
Yeah.
From Texas Tech.
Well, Z-E-C-H. Yeah, Z-E-C-H. Is it Zach?
Zach.
Yeah, we pronounce it. I guess I'm reading it. I guess that's how you pronounce it. I don't know.
Yeah, I was told it was Zach. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's
that's
the way it's pronounced or spelled.
Gotcha.
So
yeah,
obviously a cornerback out of Texas Tech. I always joke that they don't play defense in that conference, so you never know about these guys. But look, 5'11", 191, was a Penn State transfer. Graduated early from Penn State, by the way, and then just was able to go to Texas Tech, get his time in. Here's what I'll tell you what I've learned about him, because not all of these guys yet I've got intel on, but this one I do. Like the good attacker of the ball and good discipline player. But I was told that he's kind of a guy who has enough for a foundation, but really needs to be coached up and built up. So a little bit of a project, but you like the skill set there to work with. I know that there were more I was told by some personnel guys there were more polished corners probably on the board at the time, but you use the draft as a projection. And when you have this kind of guy who's a good athlete, good instincts, you hope that 3 years down the road with the coaching that he develops to be better than some of the guys who were on the board.
So my best personnel source with defensive backs, I seem to have one in the last couple of years of every position. I meet these guys, the Combine or Senior Bowl. One guy in particular really likes me. Say he's super competitive, instinctive.
Mm-hmm.
He's not super long. You like your corners to have longer arms.
Mm-hmm.
It does matter, especially with taller receivers. So that's, again, he was this guy is a 4th round pick, so we need to understand that.
Right.
But he's competitive. He tackles well. He's what you want in a 4th round pick. Again, folks, you're not going to get the perfect player close to it in the 4th round. There's surprises. Guys sometimes can outplay their draft position. The guy that I spoke with, the first guy I spoke with, was really strong in his praise with competitiveness and instincts for the football. That is, I'll tell you what, Ronald Darby's instincts were horrendous here. His eye discipline, as we told our listeners a couple years ago, it's terrible. Now I know he had a good season with Washington. That's why he got paid. And it may have been the short scheme. I'm just telling you what the tape looked like. It was terrible 2 years ago. That's why the Eagles didn't make an effort to bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
Eye discipline is super important at corner because you make the wrong move, you get beat deep.
Or if you're staring into the backfield.
Exactly. Right. So just keep that in mind. This is on paper, this is a solid pick just based on value and talent. We have no idea if he's going to work out because he's got a new coaching staff. He's now in the pros.
All right. So interesting thing. His dad played in the NFL. His 2 brothers played college football. One of them was drafted, I think, by the Giants. He had another brother who played in for the Milwaukee Brewers minor league system. So
wow,
clearly a lot of athletic bloodlines there.
Okay.
So, and also, I think I was told good character on this guy. I feel like
Well,
everybody the Eagles
I love that
drafted,
he graduated early. I mean, that's pretty
yeah,
good. Doesn't mean
graduated
he's
well. Of
great,
course,
but yeah,
Penn State
yeah,
guy, you know. I
yeah.
mean,
There you go, Mr. Penn State. I see that. Yeah.
exactly. So, did you notice that also? I felt like that many of the guys the Eagles drafted were known for high character. I don't know if
You
that
know,
was this
generally, I'll say
emphasis.
this. I'll say this about. It's funny you say that. I have
Mhm.
noticed that I don't think we've ever really talked about that before. We probably should have. We're remiss if we haven't. But
Mhm.
it is one thing I have noticed over the years, for the most part. Now, some in the last year's class, as we've outlined before, need to mature a little bit. Not bad kids, but need to mature a little bit. Okay, handle situations better, but not any bad kids. And quite frankly, Brandon Graham's first 2 years. Now he's a sweetheart of a guy. We all know he's a special person. His first 2 years, he was so immature.
Mhm.
If you would have said he would have been a bust, I would have agreed with you. Now he
Right.
had one of the all-time growth spurts in terms of character and leadership and just level of play. I mean, you couldn't predict that though. But they knew he wasn't a bad person. He just had to get out of his own way. So yeah, I think you make a good point. Overall, in recent years, in particular, they get pretty high character kids.
Mhm.
No one ever coming out of college is a perfect choir boy, as they say.
Mhm.
But I sure as heck wasn't. You weren't. I've heard from my sources, but yeah, I would say that's a fair assumption. We haven't heard anything. It's like,
Right.
other than the guy who was here for about a week, the kid who grew up in Philly, Gary and Connolly?
No, what? Sharif Miller?
No. Who was the kid who got in trouble here? The Eagles.
Oh, Worley. DK
Daryl. I'm
Worley.
sorry, not
Yeah,
Gary.
Darryl
Worley. Yeah, I
right.
apologize. It was Daryl Worley. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kid. Other than him, oh my gosh, we don't need to go into what happened there. That was bizarre in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't draft him. Yeah.
No, yeah, that was I think they traded Torrey Smith for him, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
yeah,
to Carolina.
after,
Yeah, that
yeah.
sounds right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see how here. The last point I want to make on Zach McPherson. For a guy who they say has the tools, just needs development. Well, we've talked about this. He comes to a situation that I think is favorable where the defensive coordinator has a defensive backs coach background. The defensive backs coach has played and coached in the NFL before. I think that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, this kid's from the Maryland area, right? And he has some kind of connection with Rodney McLeod. I read that somewhere.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And I think Rodney and Denard Wilson know each other from, was it the Rams days? Because Denard was once a scout for the Rams.
It makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, there's just a connection there. What I'm saying is he comes into a pretty good cocoon. Now that doesn't always work. It seemed to work well for Carson when he was with DiFilippo, Frank Reich, and Doug. But we can take a case like Sharif Miller and say you put him with a defensive line specialist in Jim Schwartz, and it didn't necessarily work out.
Well, his issue was,
but he has some other. Yes.
Yeah, he had issues playing here in Philly. It just
exactly.
They got it right on terms of the length. Like he had a lot in him,
right?
But he needed to mature, and it's not like they didn't know this,
right? Josh Sweat though developed well under Schwartz, so I mean, you hope like you see a good right.
Who was that? Who did you say?
Josh Sweat. Good.
Josh Sweat. Oh God, he's been a great story. Yeah.
Right. So you kind of hope this kind of cocoon of coaches here is a good thing for Zach McPherson, and that it doesn't take too long to tap into that talent. All right, now the 5th round pick, this is like a proud papa moment for Inside the Birds, right? I mean, we had Greg Cosell on our show, well, his show really on our platform, Inside the Draft with Greg Cosell, say that Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis was the best receiving running back, best pass catching running back in the draft.
How about that?
We did a mock draft right before that came out Thursday, and I believe when we were doing our mocks, you took Gainwell for the Eagles in the 4th or 5th round. So that was.
I swear I didn't know they were going to draft him. I swear I didn't.
No, that's why it's a proud papa moment.
Yeah, it's cool. I'll people have been with us forever. Sometimes I'll take credit for stuff. Sometimes I will not. I did not know that. As a matter of fact, it's funny you say this. I texted with my Memphis football sources about as good as it gets there. And I said, hey, did Philly do any, did they call you guy or whatever? He said, oh, they were at our pro day. That was it. They didn't do anything that any other team wouldn't do. I'm like, okay, good. So look, this is my favorite player for the draft. It's because I watched him more than any college player in 19. Because as I said earlier, Memphis was on TV every Saturday. It seemed like, or as you said, Thursday. And I got to know that Memphis team. But the comical thing is when when Pollard, the running back, came out of Memphis, the word in the scouting circles was they never pushed him.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good. He's one of the better backup running backs in the league for the Cowboys. And you saw what Gibson did as a rookie. And Gainwell, what a great name for a running back, Gainwell.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, Alex Leatherwood. It should have been a linebacker.
Right, the Raiders.
Still a good football name.
Right, exactly. Would be a good boxer. Yeah.
It's amazing how Memphis, of all schools, right, is becoming like pass catching running back from Pollard to Antonio Gibson, who's probably going to be the best of all of them.
He's a stud. Yeah.
I think
so good.
I was going to say, I think, it's interesting, the whole opt-out thing, whether it helped or hurt. It probably hurt his draft chances, but that actually helps a team like the Eagles, where they can get him in the 5th round, and then you hope that Jamal Singleton, the new running backs coach, can help kind of coach him up, develop him behind Miles Sanders, so that you get a really good weapon out of that. Because he has, as you mentioned, as Greg Cosell told us, great hands. He can pass protect a little pretty well too.
Average, actually. It's funny because people
there's
point
a
out
clip of him going on like where he just nails Micah Parsons by
right.
the way.
And you got so I asked that question. I said, "Hey, is that a reflection?" My football source said, "No, he's average in pass protection."
Okay, he is small.
His FBI is functional football intelligence is average, but he's a good kid and a hard worker and a good learner. We ask our running backs to do a lot, and Kenny picked it up fairly well. He's not perfect. He absolutely would have gone in the 2nd or 3rd round had he played last season. We're not blaming him. We're not blaming him or any of our players who opted out. They had a lot of opt-outs, by the way.
Yeah,
a ton of them.
Definitely.
Yeah. So this kid, my source said he's more quicker than fast.
Mm-hmm.
Get him out in open space. He's making everybody miss, and that I think that's reflective of what I saw. He was electric in the open field. I mean, electric. Like, I was so like, I was just laughing because if you folks are following me on Twitter, I didn't tweet a lot during the draft because I'm making calls to try to gather information for us. And I put out, someone's going to get a really good player, a great value here.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Just go by the 2019 tape. So
right.
I had my guy from Memphis send me some tape. I asked him, I said, "Hey, could you send me some coaching tape?" I watched it on my phone for 10 minutes. He's something else. And the thing that's interesting about him, he's just over 5'8", but he's over 200 pounds. He's not like Westbrook, when he came in, was like 185, 180.
Right.
And Brian, over time, built himself up to 205, 200.
Mm-hmm.
Gainwell is 5'10", 3/10 of an inch. Now, the criticism of him is pro day. Okay, his 40 time wasn't great. Folks, put the tape on. I mean, that's who this kid is. Now,
play speed.
Yeah, his play speed, exactly. It's terrific. The reason why you draft him in the 5th round is simple. He's a better football player the day he steps on the field than Boston Scott. He's an upgrade. The case is closed. This is the right pick. Your draft is never about this season, folks. If you're drafting for need, your staff is going to get fired.
Right.
It's just a fact.
Right.
You draft for the future with hopefully you get something out of him that first year. You're hoping over his rookie, over a series of over a 4-year contract. Year 1, he contributes. Year 2, he really contributes. And in this case, it would be great if he gets on the field for 8 to 12 touches a game because he's that gifted. It's a new staff, and I believe in Nick Sirianni to call plays. I know he hasn't done it before. Based on Nyheim Hines, who he's similar to, this kid's more explosive than Hines, but that's a kind of role. He lined up at X receiver that's the single side receiver. He lines up at the slot. My Memphis guy told me we line up in a slot a lot. Yes, so I'm looking at the notes that the guy sent me. So, and he said that it was easy because there's no one that could get him in open space because it was over. It was, once you get him in open space, makes one guy miss down the field. So this is a phenomenal pick. Now, if he doesn't do well, it's either he just didn't get the offense like he was taught, or the coaching's bad. Right. But on the surface, projecting him, he should be a great pick for the Eagles.
One thing that my personnel source said to caution about, and this is pretty typical among his style and build of running backs, is he's got a little bit of Bryce Brown-itis in him, where he tries to
break
bounce
outside,
bounce everything outside. Okay. Listen, that's typical of
he's
rookies.
Not a great inside runner.
Fast guys. Yeah. So, and by the way, so lost, so forgotten of all the weird moves from the last 2 years, right? I mean, it seems like this kid is way more of a fit for what they want than the guy that Howie claimed off waivers last year.
Yeah, Huntley
from the Lions. What's his name? What was
Jason Huntley?
Jason Huntley.
Yeah, it's awful.
Who never played.
Yeah,
that was just perplexing to me, man.
See, there's a term like Donnell Pumphrey, right?
Oh yeah.
The word with the coaching staff then was he's small and he plays small. This kid, Gainwell, is sort of small, but he plays explosive and bigger.
Right.
When he's willing to run inside, as you said, I heard the same thing. Huntley is just too small. He's so far behind. The Eagles just claimed off waivers based on traits. And the thing is that my line source told me it was to the point, not only the coaches did not want him on the roster, he struggled catching punts because they really wanted him to, if he was going to make it, to be a punt return. He couldn't even do that. Or kickoff return. I can't remember. I think it was kickoffs. But anyway, so he's got a long way to go. That kid's a long shot to make it. But Gainwell, look, we'll see on specials. I don't know. I haven't dug in enough of him on special teams to return, but I love this pick. I mean, it's such a no-brainer. Like, how do you pass this kid up in the 5th round?
Hey, look, I was just about to say, when you talk about BPA, a couple of guys I spoke to thought 4th rounder for him. 4th rounder.
Yeah, I thought 3rd only because of, but as my Memphis guy told me, he goes, man, he goes, you're missing it. And this guy working league, he goes, you don't draft a guy off of 1 year in the 3rd round. It's hard to sell it. Let's say you're a scout, right? And you love this player. This guy's in your area. It's hard to say I'm putting a 3rd round grade on a guy, or for the team that you could put a 3rd round grade on him, but for your team to draft him in the 3rd round, it's hard when you don't have the production. He played 2 previous years of a smattering of on-field production, very little. He only produced for 1 year, and it was a monster. The tape reflects the numbers. He was, I mean, electric.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
What can you say? I'm kind of excited. I know we get more excited, of course, by
I'll be
players.
wrong if people throw it at me. He'll probably suck. Oh well.
Well, we get more excited about offensive players than say linemen. I mean, linemen is how you build your team, but it's easier to talk about the electrifying type of guys. Let's move on to round 6. I have a feeling I was right about something.
Okay.
And this pick is going to reflect it. Now, you never know. Once you get into 6th round, Marlon Tuipulotu, USC defensive tackle, Tuipulotu. I have not yet gotten intel on him. Do you have intel on him from anything? There's just something that struck out.
Yeah, he's a run guy. He's a strong run guy. That's what someone texted me. I love when people give me like 7 words when I ask for help. That's exactly what came in. I appreciate it, but it's just funny. I'm like, these guys are in the draft. This guy was not from the Eagles; he's from another team, and it happened to be his area. So he goes, "I'll tell you later." I'm like, "Okay," but I got to do the show. We'll have more. The Eagles needed D tackle depth, and because we don't know how they're going to use Milton Williams yet. Well, I mean, we know he's a hybrid player, DN, D tackle. He's going to have to put the weight back on that he lost.
Yep.
But this kid is a run stopper, and they don't have anyone proven of all the D tackles that they have. The young kids. Even Ridgway's been hurt for 2 years. You know, he's got talent. There's no doubt. His upside is a 4th D tackle, but he hasn't been able to sustain it. So why not put a lot of guys out there and see who can win a job?
So he's a run stuffer, which is what I suspected.
Yep.
And the second thing I read up on him is that at USC, he played the 3 technique, but he also played the nose, right? Now, do you recall me reporting that one big difference from Jim Schwartz to the scheme is that Jonathan Gannon, I had heard that he wanted kind of a more of a nose head-on up tackle than we've seen. We've seen a lot of 3 techniques and some, but they were looking for a nose here. And this guy apparently fits the profile, and he may be kind of the only one of their DTs that really has that kind of versatility to line up. You know, you could line up in the 3 technique, line up the nose when you're more of a run stuffer. So I think that shows you that there's going to be a little bit of a different look here in the defensive front.
When is the last time they had a true nose tackle?
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
Jim Johnson didn't really. I mean, they were always under Andy 4-3, get up the field quickly. You know, especially when they went from who was their coach before Washburn? I can't even remember their D-line coach.
D-line coach?
Yeah, well, I can't. Oh, it was it was Rory Segrist there for a little bit.
Do you know they actually tried to bring him back? This is so crazy.
Yeah, I remember. Ted Dasher.
Wait, who was the older guy? Tommy Brazier. I'm
sorry, that's the one. Or was it both? Dasher? No, Dasher.
Tommy Brazier was the guy. He must be 90 now.
Yeah.
He was like the Tim Houck of coaches. Let's just keep bringing him back.
Right.
Remember, were you covering the team when Tim Houck Andy kept bringing Tim Houck back?
I think so.
Like Jeff Thomas, you know.
Yeah.
But whatever this is, Pupilotu, 6'1" and 7/10, 307 his pro day.
Right.
The only disappointing thing at his pro day, not that it's terrible, but you would wish a little bit stronger, and I would judge him too hard. But his bench was 29. like a little. You would like it in the 30s. I only know that because the scouting source told me, explained to me. He wants interior defensive tackles because they're all about holding up against the run. That's what they're there. Now he had a hamstring injury during it, so I wouldn't go crazy. But okay, yeah, it fits what you were talking about. His really good arm length at 33. That's solid for a D tackle. To have 33 or more, that's good. His 10 wasn't terrible. It was a 1A2. He's look, as you said, they drafted probably guys going to probably be a nose.
Right.
If he makes it, maybe he gets 10 to 15 snaps a game, and teams are in nickel now anyway, so it's we'll see what happens. But
feels like he'll probably compete with Hassan Ridgeway for the 4th tackle job.
Yeah, and then
whoever
now we don't know how Ridgeway's role is going to change for this with this coaching staff though.
Exactly. By the way, I got a huge laugh. I love going to the NFL.com and seeing their prospect comparisons. They do their write-ups. And this one came from your buddy Lance
Erline,
who's great, by the way. I love him.
Lance is great.
I think he's really good at what he does.
Great, yeah.
By the way, Lance had him projected in the 5th round, so the Eagles get him in the 6th round.
Oh, because Lance's dad Larry was the Super Bowl winning offensive line coach with the Steelers. I talked to Larry when I worked for Fox Sports, and Lance is one of the best offensive line experts that I know that didn't play football. I don't maybe Lance played in high school, but Lance really knows offensive line play, defensive line play. Isn't it funny?
Yeah.
How guys like that, if they know O-line, they know D-line. But
yes, it is. So what I like about Lance, his prospect comparisons, and he doesn't just take like obvious guys this guy reminds me of I'm trying to think of Fletcher Cox, right? Sure. His NFL comp for Tui Pulotu. Tui Pulotu is Foley Fatukasi. Okay. I honestly don't know who Foley Fatukasi is. Yeah. I have never heard of Foley Fatukasi.
Sometimes they get names. Sometimes they have a nickname.
I think Lance made that one up just to see if people would notice.
Well, no, actually, I do know who that is. Drawing a blank, but I know the name. But anyway.
Is he related to Fanuki Tupo?
Topu. Right. Because the Eagles had a history of Tongan players.
Oh, yeah. What's your favorite NFL Tongan name? Or I should say Pacific Islander name, because it could be Tahiti, it could be Hawaii.
His son, Steve Kafusi, his son's Bronson, a bunch of them played in the league. This is in the early 90s. You wouldn't remember him.
Mine is Chris Fuamatu
Ma'afala. Yeah, it's a great one. It's a great
Polynesian bus. They called him because he was a running back for the Steelers.
Fuamatu Ma'afala. Yeah, I love that name. Just rolls off the tongue.
Certainly. All right, let's move on to their second pick in round 6, their second of 3. Another lineman, Teron Jackson, defensive end, Coastal Carolina. You know who I bet could give me like an entire a 10-page scouting report on this guy is Andrew DeCecco, because that guy knows Coastal Carolina like nobody else. So I'll have to kind of hit him up.
Isn't that interesting?
He loves watching Coastal Carolina games.
Here's what I know. He's a pressure. He's good with pressures.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I got from the guy I texted. He goes, he'll get pressures for Philly, is what he said.
I mean, he's 6'2", though. That's a little bit of a concern at 6'2".
I don't know what his arm length is. I don't know what his build is.
33 1/4 arms.
It's not bad.
Not bad for 6'2". Right.
Yeah. That's actually not bad at all. But like you'll take that all day. But the guys who have 31 and 32, particularly under 32, is a problem. So we'll learn. We'll have more for our Monday morning show, because we're going to go for a roster. We'll have all of them, and we'll have a better idea. In fact, I think we're going to probably find out how some of these guys are going to be used. In fact, last year we didn't find out for like a month. I remember we did a roster show. We broke it all down, and it was a pretty popular show. But I we'll find out. Jeff and I know a lot of people around the league, particularly obviously with the Eagles, but there are a lot of area guys that we know around the league, and I just want to get more traits and how they performed on tape, because that'll give us a better idea. The more we know about the Gannon scheme on defense and the Sirianni scheme on offense, about how these guys will fit in.
So the book on him is that he's not a natural bender around the edge, but I kind of wonder. I mean, you'd love to have that as an edge rusher, but I do wonder, with this defense being more twist and stunt reliant than clearly more than Jim's, if the bend isn't as it's fine. Like we're talking late round draft picks anyway, but if you're just looking for lateral quickness and agility, burst to be able to kind of loop around a tackle and go inside the A gap there and rush the quarterback from different positions, as opposed to does he bend around an offensive tackle? Because it sounds like there's going to be a lot more movement in line games up front, and sometimes your bend as opposed to an explosive first step or a burst may not be as important, right?
Yes, and by the way, I've heard Tracy Rocker, their D-line coach, definitely they definitely listen to him. Like he's a guy that definitely had some impact on them drafting Milton Williams. I don't know Rocker's work all that well, so I don't know how strong his voice is, but I know they're definitely listening to him to get what kind of player he likes.
Right.
So we'll find out more about Teron Jackson, and also. The next kid is interesting because I did see him a little bit this past season or last time he played. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, I'm sorry. Tracy Rocker's son, Kumar, is one of the best college pitchers in the country.
Yeah, you were telling me that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the same Vanderbilt team as Al Leiter's kid, Jack Leiter.
What are the chances of that?
And they're both considered two of the best pitchers in the country. So
how about that?
Food for thought. All right. As you were going on, I'll let you proceed on to
Jacoby Stevens. I like this. Why not? He's a one of these big jumbo safeties, play him in the box type of guys like Mark Barron, who just kind of Mark Barron was a former first round pick. He's still technically a free agent. He might be done playing, but Mark Barron was a former first round pick of the Bucks. Later in his career, because he just was not good enough, he got moved to safety, and then he got moved back to. Well, he got moved.
He started as a safety.
Inside linebacker. I'm sorry, inside linebacker. He was able to continue his career. As a matter of fact, he got a huge free agent contract for moving from safety to linebacker. So you never know. It's worth a shot here. He's going to be a walk-up player. You could use him in a variety of ways. Now, the question is, will they ask him to put on weight to play Jack linebacker, which is sort of an arena football league term? Right. Jack linebacker is a guy who's a hybrid linebacker. You have him cover, you have him play in the box. You could have him do a couple things here. So this is a kind of interesting defensive back here. I wonder if Jonathan Gannon had something to do with this.
Yeah, I was wondering that myself. When you say Jack linebacker, I always think about the 1 year that Chip Kelly figured out how to use Nolan Carroll. He used him in that, and Nolan had a good year there. Not a great year, but they wound up giving him an extension, like a 1 or 2 year in the offseason, because he played that position well. But then Chip got fired. So, so I do think that you mentioned this, right? You've said that Gannon wants to be in nickel and sub packages a lot, and you need these hybrid defenders who can come down and cover a tight end, or maybe even run with a running back out of the backfield, and be able to do play versatile positions. So he'll clearly compete for that. And honestly, who's his competition? I mean, he is going to have competition, but at safety right now. You've got Rodney, you've got Anthony Harris, you've got Kavon Wallace, and they signed the kid, Andrew Adams or Adam Andrews?
More of a force safety and a
special teams guy. And am I missing? Oh, Marcus Epps, he's still with the team?
Marcus Epps is, yes, a former Viking, yes.
All right, so they got 5 safeties. There's certainly he can compete for that 4th spot or special teams or practice squad. Now, you mentioned Malcolm Jenkins type of guy because he can do a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a little bit high praise here.
Well, no, but I was going to say he's is this the kid? Like he kind of was a leader on the team, a captain. I think he organized like a voting initiative to get the entire team to vote. Like he's very civic minded, just like
that. I don't know. That I don't know.
I did read that somewhere that he was his leadership was big on him. So I think it came from the Eagles. Their bio on him. So sounds like, again, high character. He sounds like a good kid and a good leader. And last but not least, we will get to the final pick. And it was with 7th round, Patrick Johnson from Tulane, 6'2", 240. They're listing him as a linebacker, even though he was a pass rusher at Tulane, right?
Yeah,
is this Chris Gokong?
Chris Gokong, see, he was a small school guy.
Well, that's what Tulane
was. It Cal
Poly San Luis Obispo.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Gokong, what he was is he was a hybrid athletic outside linebacker. He just never made it.
Right.
He just never, these small school guys have to overcome a lot.
Yep.
Sometimes they can because they're special. Sometimes You're just drafting traits.
Right.
What was he a third rounder?
Yeah, he was a third rounder. He won the
Yeah.
Buck Buchanan Award, which is like the top pass rusher at the, I guess at that back then it was called the 1AA level.
Yeah, sure.
But not just overcoming the competition, but you're asking him now to play a position. He had to play strong side linebacker. So instead of rushing the quarterback, he was playing a run and cover position. So but we don't know enough about how Jonathan Gannon is going to, remember, Anthony Barr is a guy that rushes the passer a lot, doesn't cover. Sometimes he has to get stuck in coverage, and it's not a good thing for the Vikings.
Right.
But I mean, again, 7th round pick, as you said, you're looking for traits,
Yeah.
looking for a guy that maybe might be intelligent enough or athletic enough to mold into what you want and see if it works.
Jalen Mills is a perfect example. Okay. There were some character knocks on him coming out of Miami. Okay. The Eagles did their homework on him.
No, LSU, I believe.
I mean, LSU, I'm sorry. Yeah. LSU. And they did their homework on him. They said, you know what? We could deal with what we found out. There's a reason why he dropped. And also he dropped because he doesn't run very well.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that was out there, most of it was not true. They got it right. I mean, and he didn't have athletic traits. He just was smart, tough. Now he's really not a safety. He's more of a hybrid player, but he just, you knew the foot speed was eventually going to get him, and it did.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked. That's what you want. You just want someone to contribute. You never think a 7th rounder is going to start.
Right.
You just hope he can make the team, contribute on teams, maybe play on defense at some point. That's what you hope. What Jalen Mills wound up being is one of the better 7th round picks for this team in the last 20 years, starting the Super Bowl.
Yeah, certainly.
That's the ultimate, but you can't count on that. As Geoff said at the start of this, these 6th and 7th round picks most likely won't even make it.
That is correct. We will see. I look forward now to these guys being able to kind of grow and develop and having that to talk about. Before we get out of here, Adam, I want to address one thing.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked about best player available and don't need to address immediate need till we're blue in the face. No matter what, some people think that it's best player available at the positions that you need, and I completely disagree with that. But the point is, they do have a glaring hole still at outside linebacker. You cannot rely on a 4th round pick to come in and know that he can start. But I think people also forget, and we try to remind them, there's a lot of time between now and the start of the season. A lot of people were worried about cornerback in 2017 and Howie Roseman traded for Ronald Darby. I know people are saying, well, how can you trade or sign anybody right now when you don't have any money? Well, you might get money when you eventually do get rid of Zach Ertz's salary. You may restructure at some point.
Restructures.
No. I know. Extend. The defensive end?
Sure. Well, do something. Derek Barnett's $10 million. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They really could use that money.
So just let's relax. I highly doubt the Eagles are going to go into the season with Darius Slay and everybody else who they have at corner.
Yeah, exactly. Because here's what's folks. Before we get out of it, let's set up next week. Okay, so you're hearing this either Saturday night or Sunday. A bunch of veterans are going to be released over the next 2 weeks because teams have now had their draft,
of course,
and guys are going to be released. So there are a couple good corners on the market. Steven Nelson's a decent number 2. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder with him. Some guys like him, sometimes don't. I know Greg Cosell likes him, by the way. Mm-hmm. Casey Hayward's out there. I know he's had concussion issues, but it's been a while since he's had those issues. He's still a good player. He's long too.
Yeah.
High character guy. You'd be happy to bring either of these guys in. Now we've had the draft. Their asking price is going to go down. Okay. Now they were not, as I understand it, they were not willing to pay TJ Carey. He's only making $2 million. They wouldn't even go there for him. They want to pay him the veteran minimum. Okay. Because they saw him as a 4th corner.
Right.
Well, if you sign Nelson or Hayward, they're starting corners. You're going to have to pay a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But so we'll see what happens. You make a good point because I learned this the hard way when I would complain to teams like, man, what were you guys thinking? Why didn't you do this? And they go, dude, free agency goes till the fall.
Yeah.
We'll get I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And there's no expiration date on a trade market either.
So. Right. Exactly. No, but I will tell you though, on the Ertz situation, because there's less incentive for a team to acquire a player after the draft because they fill their needs now. Mm-hmm. There are a couple teams that still need a tight end, like Buffalo. They still need it. I think you had reported that. You said I remind everyone because we put a lot of scoops out on our Friday night show. So give everyone an update on what you had heard. On Buffalo.
Yeah, I have a strong source on this that they are interested in Zach Ertz, but I was told they felt it was unlikely that a deal was going to be done. So either they didn't like how he wanted in return, or it became a financial issue. I don't know the particulars. I just know that they like him. They're interested, but they were skeptical that a deal would be done during the draft. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, that will explain it, because if you look at Buffalo, right,
Mm-hmm.
they have Dawson Knox, who I like, who's athletic, but has had some injuries. They've got Jacob Hollister's seemingly always hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I remember they traded away Lee Smith to the Falcons, and they let Croft work.
Right.
So they need a tight end, but they didn't draft one, and Ertz is still in the Eagles roster. So we'll see what happens. This one is interesting. This is not the way most people around the league thought this would happen, that he'd still be in the roster.
Right.
But this is the opportunity to move the guy. They didn't move him. So, hey, he's on the roster.
There you go. All right, that's going to wrap this up. Reminder to everybody, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use the promo code ITB, and you'll get a lot of sign-up bonuses. That's promo code ITB for all your sign-up bonuses at DraftKings. And, of course, you can use the promo code ITB to get your deal on free bids at Deal Dash. Either go to DealDash.com or use their app, Deal Dash. You'll get great stuff at discount prizes. That's it for this special edition of ITB TV. Thanks to Adam Caplan. I'm Geoff Mosher. One last thing, go visit our friends at Sky Motor Cars. You'll get a great deal on cars there. And we will be back on Monday, 6 a.m. when our podcast that recaps everything that's gone on in the last 24 to 48 hours will drop. We'll have more intel, and I look forward to talking to you, Adam, and entertaining our listeners. All right, everyone, have a great one. Thanks for listening.